The development of a new multi-storey hotel in close proximity to the country's oldest mosque is causing major controversy in Cape Town's Bo-Kaap. This proposed building will be located less than 20 meters away from the historic Auwal Mosque. Among other objections, residents are concerned that their calls to prayer will be affected, as well as the living cultural heritage and traditions of the Bo-Kaap. Latashia Naidoo is there and brings us more. Latashia, good morning. We've seen in recent months the Bo-Kaap or residents in Bo-Kaap up in arms about the proliferation of tourist buses and tourists and so on. Now they have this battle on their hands with also protecting a historical site there. Tell us what's at stake with this mosque. And we've seen the community there being quite vocal about their grievances. What have they been saying?
Good morning, Iman. Yes, as we know, the Bo-Kaap of significant cultural and heritage value to Cape Town, but particularly to the people who live in this community. And this time around, the furor is around a new development that's going to be built in very close proximity to the oldest mosque in South Africa, that Auwal Mosque, which was built in 1795, which you can see behind me. Now, the concerns of the community, particularly residents of the Bo-Kaap, stems from the fact that not only will views of the mosque be obstructed with the 6-story development being established, but also the call to prayer would also be affected given the noise levels of construction. There's also concerns that the sale of alcohol from the hotel premises is going to be of major concern, especially with regard to its proximity to this religious site, which is of utmost importance to the community of the Bo-Kaap. Now, Flitz Property Investment Group, which are the developers of this proposed hotel, purchased the land back in 2017. 2 years later, the Bo-Kaap was declared a heritage zone. And since then, there's been a lot of consultation with between the developers, between the community, residents of the community, between the developers and heritage agencies, just to ensure that everyone is on the same page with regard to this development. But it's now reached a point where there is further consultations. The City of Cape Town's Municipal Tribunal Appeals Committee has heard over 70 objections to the establishment of this hotel by residents and heritage experts as well, who have provided testimony about why the construction of this hotel in such close proximity to a holy or place of worship is not a good idea. And this is causing, of course, a lot of furor. This brouhaha is continuing between the residents and the developers. So it's a stalemate of sorts at the moment with regard to whether the 6-story development is going to be built within the course of this year. And the community of Bo-Kaap strongly objecting to the fact that this will impact on the heritage and cultural value of the community, but also overshadow a building that holds such cultural and religious significance to the community, Iman.
Latashia, if you just read the history of this particular mosque, and if I'm not mistaken, my Arabic's a bit rusty, but Auwal would mean the first one. And as you say, it was the first and oldest one that's been built in the country during the time of its construction, during the first British occupation of the Cape of Good Hope, is my understanding. It has become a repository of Muslim culture and tradition for the area. So when you talk about this deep history, you've also told us when it was built, there certainly is a great deal of attachment for not only the Muslim community, but for everyone who has an interest in the preservation of the culture of the Cape in general.
Of course, Iman. I mean, this mosque built in 1795, not just of religious value to the community, but their cultural value. This community was built around this mosque, and much of the CBD has been established with that Auwal Masjid at the center of development. And while there are there is support for the development or further development in the Bo-Kaap area. It's the proximity of this building, this new hotel in particular, which is of concern to the community, but also to heritage experts, given the significance of this masjid, given what it represents to the people of Cape Town, particularly with regard to the Islamic faith. And the location of this hotel, a mere 10 meters away from the Auwal Mosque, is the biggest issue that is being brought up by the complainants to the tribunals who are considering the appeals against the construction of this hotel. So it's a very interesting development. The people of the Bo-Kaap standing firm in their stance that this development should not be built. It's been an 8-year process of consultations leading up to this moment, and it's still a stalemate, like I mentioned. The community really protective of this site and of this property in particular, and speaking to how the views, how the alcohol aspect, and also the cultural significance and heritage value of this building in particular will be diluted if that hotel is allowed to be built, Iman.